Hello, everyone. This is our 12th and final monthly Lake Org Chat for 2025. As an outreach program of the College of Natural Resources at UW-Stevens Point, our goal is to provide educational resources and support to the broader community in regard to lake health. As you know, Wisconsin is home to over 15,000 lakes, and there are over 750 lake organizations representing almost 1,000 of these lakes. These organizations help to protect and manage the health of lakes and entire watersheds for current and future generations. We try to get important and timely information out in a variety of ways. And this past year, we've been recording monthly Lake Org chats to get this information to you in a hopefully engaging way. Please let us know how we're doing by completing the feedback form linked on YouTube. And we hope you'll join us in the future for future episodes, which we will get to at the very end of this one. So in this episode, we will be discussing the importance of succession planning and how organizations can transfer knowledge and transition leadership effectively. I'm Sarah Winju, the Leadership and Capacity Development Specialist for Extension Lakes at UW-Stevens Point.
And I'm Eric Olson. I'm the Director of Extension Lakes, and I also help facilitate these conversations each month.
And I am Dave Quady, and I am honored to work with the Sand Lake Association and its membership. Sand Lake is in Rusk and Chippewa counties. I'm a proud member and graduate of the Lake Leaders Institute, crew number 15, and a member of the Capacity Committee. Pete?
Yes, I'm Peter Jensen. I'm the former chairperson of the Eagle Spring Lake Management District in Waukesha County. I'm also a member of Lake Leaders Crew 15, which completed its training in 2024, and I've been a member of the Capacity Committee for years.
And we want to thank you both, Dave and Peter, for being with us for almost all of these monthly chats in 2025. These two individuals have shared so much knowledge and expertise and have given their time. So we appreciate everything you've done and for sharing all that you know. So thank you for hanging on with us throughout the year and being here to round out our 12 episodes. All right, well, let's jump into succession planning. We're calling it succession planning here, but it can also be called transitioning planning or continuity of operations planning. Lots of different ways to call this important topic. And no matter what you call it, what we are talking about is the process of identifying and preparing people to fill roles in your organization, whether it's a lake association or a lake district. Now, identifying those people now and into the future so you can help maintain the stability and the operational continuity during times of transition. And it's best to plan for that time of transition now before it actually happens. Much of what we'll be talking about today in this chat is a recap of our past monthly chats. So if you haven't watched some of the past ones, be sure to do that. We'll also be sharing resources that are available to you that you can use to help develop a succession plan that's right for your organization, and every organization will be different. You may already have some of the succession planning process complete, so some of the steps that we'll be showing might not apply to you. And I would recommend over the next couple of months, we're recording this in winter. So if you're watching this in winter, this is a great time to work on some of these steps and devote some of your time to planning activities. All right. We're going to start with step one. You may skip this if you already have a vision and a mission statement, but it's good to have a vision. However, a mission statement is something that is, if you have one clearly written, put it on your website, on your agendas, your newsletters, and all other forms of communication. Your mission reminds people of why your organization exists and how it is different from other similar organizations that might exist in your community. Some lakes might have multiple lake-oriented organizations. around their lake or within their community. So it's good to have that mission statement and differentiate your organization from the rest. This mission statement also can help you explain why people should support your organization. It might take a while to develop a clear mission statement. You may need to bring people together, have a lot of discussion, conduct surveys, listen to a lot of different perspectives and opinions before formulating a mission that makes sense and people can get behind. So Peter and David, do you have mission statements for your organizations? And if so, would you be willing to share?
Absolutely. So our mission statement, we came up with it several years ago. The board met and we said exactly what Sarah was talking about. Hey, we need a really clear and concise mission statement that is relatable to the membership and our community and makes sense for our organization. So ours is on our website, but it is the Sand Lake Association's mission is to keep Sand Lake and the surrounding areas clean, invasive species free, and safe for all residents and visitors. So when we do things, we concentrate on making sure that they meet those criteria that are published in our mission statement. It's worked well for us over the years, but don't think that it's a one and done, because as your organization matures or changes, maybe something changed in the water or your lake, and you need to tweak it, they're tweakable. So just remember, it's living, but it should be very concise and make sense to meeting your goals. Pete?
Yeah, we're we're a lake district, and as a lake district, we are a local government taxing body that's created by state statute. Our mission assignment is written into the state statutes, and that was an overarching goal or guide for everything that the lake district does. So we're a little bit different than an association that has to write theirs. Ours is assigned to us by state statute that we have to follow.
Thank you both for sharing that. I also want to make sure people know that we did have a Capacity Corner article from August 2021, which we're showing here on the slide. So go there. You can find that on our website, the Extension Lakes website. You can find more information about mission statements there, or in the September 2025 issue, which talks about how you might be able to use or how other organizations are using artificial intelligence or AI to help develop or refine your mission statement. So if you have one already, maybe you need to tweak it, like Dave was talking about, revise it. But if you do have one, make sure you bring it up frequently and have discussions about it. All right, anything else about missions? Right, moving on.
All right. So succession planning, step 2 is review and update your bylaws. So associations, and I'll talk a little bit about this, we have bylaws. If you're a lake district, there's a different thing, and Eric and Pete will chat about that. But for a lake association, make sure your bylaws are up to date and make sure everyone on the board knows where to find them. Also, we think it's a great idea to post them on our website so membership can review. And when we do update our bylaws, if we do, and we do review them and update them on a fairly regular basis, it's nice to have them listed on your website so people can easily review them and see what exactly does Sand Lake stand for. So these should incorporate some key succession things, such as outline your term, such as a 3-year term for a board member, term limits. How many times can you be president or treasurer? Succession planning gets harder when someone is in the position for a long time. Bylaws should also state that the board members transition in and out on a rotating yearly basis or year basis. And so For us, we have half of our board elected in 1 year, and then the other half of the board elected actually 2 years later. We don't have elections every year, but we rotate those positions so that if something bad happens or somebody has to resign, it doesn't lead, we aren't in sync where we have to have an election or something like that to replace that person without having knowledge to fill that role, which is the whole point of succession planning, right? So we as a board talk a lot amongst ourselves to make sure everybody's on the same page in case something happens and we need to transition in a non-election year. Eric?
Yeah, I mean, our People of the Lakes guide, which is available for free online, does have a model set of bylaws for lake associations. These were developed over a number of years and kind of meant to serve as a template for any lake organization, a lake association to jump off from. We recommend taking a look also at other lake association bylaws. So it's a good reason to contact maybe some neighboring lakes and find out if they have varied from, for example, the model bylaws and why they maybe chose to do something slightly different. The model bylaws that we provide do specify a 2-year term when you get elected, but really we don't have right now term limits in these model bylaws. I agree with what Dave suggested. It's something that groups should consider enacting some form of term limits to ensure that people don't sort of stay in that position for too long. Many nonprofit boards, lake associations are just an example. They find that having term limits makes it more accessible for new members to come onto the board because a couple of things, they feel like they're not necessarily just joining a good old boys club. That can be helpful. But also they maybe want to know that they're not going to be signing up for something that they have to do now for 20 years of their life. Just knowing that it's a limited engagement makes it actually more attractive to people. What about lake districts, Peter?
Well, lake districts are a little bit different in the fact that we are governed by state statute. And the most prominent state statute for lake districts is Chapter 33. Board members and other people in positions of authority not only need to know about Chapter 33, but they need to read, understand, follow, and reference it. And it's a relatively easy document to reference because you can do word searches on it, both online and if you download it as a PDF document. I think it's also important to recognize that while Chapter 33 is the preeminent state statute, there are many other state statutes that lake districts have to follow. For example, there are requirements for posting meeting minutes. There's accident and health incident reporting and safety reporting requirements under state statute. There are open records laws and many other state statutes that do apply to lake districts that are not optional. They are mandatory that lake districts follow. And therefore, people who are going to assume positions or who are in positions need to not only know those documents, they need to read and follow them. They are just as much part of a Lake District operation as Chapter 33 and are part of the whole package that comes with running a Lake District.
Yeah, and I'll reference once again the People of the Lakes Guide. We have an entire chapter. Chapter 5 is about operating a lake district, and it'll reference the Chapter 33 requirements, but it'll also reference other pieces of statute. So don't be intimidated and think that you have to read the entire book of state of Wisconsin laws. You do not, but we would encourage people to become acquainted with Chapter 5, operating a lake district, and maybe even look at some of the laws that are referenced there. These laws in Wisconsin, they really don't support the idea of term limits for lake districts, and we don't really see that anywhere for local government or state government in Wisconsin. However, a lake district really can sort of set the table, not necessarily for term limits, but for inviting more people to run for these positions, to making it clear that this isn't sort of a closed circuit that you have to kind of know somebody to get involved. So a couple of things you can do is, as we're going to reference in a minute, create position descriptions, even for lake district boards, and post those on your webpage so that people know what they might be getting themselves into if they ever wanted to run for lake district boards. So, for example, how much of a time commitment could be expected of a board member? You can also use committees to your advantage. So a lake district board can set up committees, and the committees can be open to people who are not elected to the board or appointed to the board. These could be other people who are just interested in helping you take care of the lake. And you can use these committees to build a bench of future Lake District board members. And our June chat actually talked about how lake orgs can use committees for tackling a whole bunch of different issues. So look at the June 2025 video for more examples about committees. Now, another thing you could do, and this is again not mandated by any means, but it's something we recommend or advise, is developing policy and procedure manuals. And I know a lot of you just fell asleep when I said that out loud, but these can be kind of boring, dry documents, but there's something that you can refer back to and sort of explain why certain decisions are made different ways. It's also possibly a place where you can capture a lot of important information listed out in the bullets in this slide, so that your lake district doesn't have sort of all the information, or your lake association doesn't have all the information just in one person's head, right? Usually the secretary is trying to keep track of all these things, but it helps to put them down in writing and make sure that everyone can share this type of document and understand what the annual flow is, who really does the different tasks that are assigned, and then maybe a sketch of what the future goals are for your lake association or lake district. This is also a place where you might sort of, I hate to say this out loud, but list out sort of how your passwords are maintained. If you have web resources, online resources that involve passwords, the last thing you want to do is have everyone say, well, nobody's around anymore who knows how to log into that thing. I can't necessarily recommend that you write these passwords down, but you do have to have some system of tracking those passwords and passing them on from one person to another when there is succession. This document is really internal to your group, so we wouldn't obviously, if there's passwords, don't post this online necessarily, the whole thing. It could be something physical that actually gets transferred from one person to another. This is also something that you probably want to revisit on a regular basis. So again, Sarah suggested wintertime is a good time to pull these documents out, sit by the fire, and maybe browse through and mark up things that need to be updated or changed in terms of policies and procedures. For lake associations, you have a lot of flexibility here as far as what you're going to do. For lake districts, as Peter just said, there are a lot of statutory things that you have to be cognizant of, and you can't have, for example, policies and procedures that are in conflict with Chapter 33 or other parts of statute. At the same time, this can help you drill into maybe some details where people have been scratching their head and wondering, well, how exactly are we going to do these things? So just an example might be bidding. The state law says that all contracts in excess of $2,500 for the performance of any work or purchase of any materials shall be let by Lake District commissioners to the lowest responsible bidder in the manner they prescribe. Okay, well, what does that last part mean? In the manner they prescribe? Somehow you have to sit down and maybe write out what is our policy regarding procurement and bidding. And this might include things like, how are you going to advertise the fact that you're looking for bids for a project? Where are those ads going to be placed? How long are they going to run? When different competing bids come in, what is your process for evaluating them and comparing and ultimately selecting? Those things aren't spelled out necessarily in statute. They're things that you might learn locally. And we do recommend talking to town government and county government to find out what their process looks like, and maybe modeling a lot of what you do after that. And also, you don't have to really create this from scratch. The Wisconsin DNR publishes a procurement guide for local governments. Lake districts would be kind of included in that family. And you can basically adopt these to your local organization. The DNR does this because they rely on local governments to implement a lot of their programs through grants, like the surface water grants. So take a look at this. We're going to provide a link on the YouTube channel that'll get you right to the DNR's procurement guide. Peter, any other policy documents that you all use or you're familiar
Yes,
with?
Eric, all those were excellent points you just made. I think it's important that lake districts recommend and understand that some of the policy documents that they have, are extremely useful, particularly if something begins to go south. Those include things like human resources manuals. How are you going to manage staff? And even if your only staff are clean boats, clean waters, these policy manuals are important, and they may be required either by state law or by your insurance company. It can be safety manuals. It could be a dam operating guide if, for example, you have a dam. What's your policy regarding open records? What's your policy regarding record retention? And all of these that are very specific to your organization that are required or recommended by legal entities or your insurance company. And of course, that includes a good job description. And all of these documents, the key to them is keeping them up to date as well as following them. I think it's also kind of important to recognize that, this can be a very daunting task for some lake districts, but there is help out there. If you have insurance, which all lake districts should have, very likely that insurance company has a risk retention group. It has various other groups that you can access their services free of charge just by asking. So I think it's important that you recognize that documenting your actions is incredibly important. Some documents may be used on a day-to-day basis. For example, your financial records and your financial accounting procedures and various other things. Some of them may be used, on a yearly basis or rarely, such as record retention requirements. But they're all important, and they are all things that need to be considered as part of this, because by having it documented, whenever the next person comes on in, there is a continuity that is continued. It's not, oh my gosh, what do I have to do now? It's a written document that they can refer to and use to make their job and their transition much, much easier and serve the organization well in the future.
Yep, and I agree. And although we don't have any formal policies outside of our bylaws, we are going to have a conversation because it is winter and we've got a little bit more time on what kind of things should we be documenting. One of the things that Sand Lake has done in the past is not a great job of transitioning people out so new fresh blood can come in with new ideas and things like that. And that's one of the things that we're concentrating on now. And while we're building that, we'll add that to our policy to make sure that while we do these transitions from one role to another or from one person to another, that it is well understood, the expectations are understood, and then the processes around. And for us, it's mostly financial, but we now employ our own Clean Boats, Clean Water folks. So we do have some things to deal with from a taxing perspective, an HR perspective. So we're maturing as a lake organization. And when we're doing that hopefully that maturing, we're also writing this stuff down and putting it in a document that's transferable.
Thank you, all of you. There's so much information here that organizations can record and document, but I'm also thinking, goodness, we all need policies and procedure manual for all areas of our lives. I'm thinking of all the areas that would help to have a policy and procedure manual. Okay, thank you for that information. We've talked a little bit about this already. Some of you have brought this up, but position descriptions. So something that you may want to spend some time on in over the next few months. If you do have 35 minutes to watch our very first monthly chat, that was focused on developing organizational capacity for lake groups. In that chat, we discussed the importance of having position descriptions so that each board member knows what their role is and how they can best contribute to the success of the organization. Sample position descriptions can be found on our website too, so you can go there, download them as Word docs, and then edit them as needed. Some of these position descriptions are pretty straightforward. However, we also know that some board members take on a lot of different activities, roles, and responsibilities that they didn't think they would take on initially. So those could be clearly outlined in their position description so that the next person in that role knows what to expect and what will be expected of them. You can also develop position descriptions for all of your committees or unique roles you may have, such as webmaster or others. Take notice of any positions that might include two roles, such as someone who might hold the role of secretary treasurer. It might be important to think about think about the separation of duties. So if one person who fills two roles vacates their position, you aren't scrambling to fill two voids. Um, it's also a lot harder to find someone to fill that position if two jobs are wrapped into one.
Yep. So we took these job descriptions. Our board went through a fair amount of transitions over the last couple of years, and we took these as templates, the ones that we built and that are out on the Lake org chart, and you can review them, like Sarah said in our first chat. And we tweaked them quite a bit because they're great templates, and we honed them in to be more specific for what our lake association needed, and we use those when we are starting to recruit new board members or actively looking for new volunteers to help us out, because it does set the expectation. These are the roles and the things, the tasks, if you will, that we think you're going to be doing. And then this is our estimate on the time it's going to take. So for instance, our job descriptions say this is the amount of time we think that this role takes during the active water season, aka when there isn't ice on the lake. And then during the non-active water season, it's probably going to be significantly less. Our association does a winter project, but for the most part, it's pretty slow in the winter, and I think that's probably true for a lot of organizations out there. So we use those extensively. They were used as our template to move forward in filling any vacancies we had on the board.
Dave, those are all excellent points. And I think, you have to recognize that a good job description is the cornerstone of effective management of really any organization. It outlines who does what, when, where, and to whom. It avoids conflicts. It makes sure that all bases are covered, at various points of the organization. And I think it's really critical that people put some thought process into these job descriptions. The old way of doing things where a job description, had this catch-all phrase that said other duties is assigned, is decades out of date. These documents need to be relatively specific, and don't be afraid to update your job description. I mean, as the organization moves forward, you may very well expand and change these rules. They are not set in stone. They are living documents and are a tool for you to use rather than a burden.
I'd say
And
similar to these position descriptions, it helps to kind of map out how are they all going to fit together using something like a skills gap matrix. So a skills gap analysis really helps you think about where is our board strong and where are we maybe weaker and need to recruit specific talents to step forward. We covered this again in that first monthly chat of 2025. It really helps if you know sort of what you're missing. And sometimes that just means sort of looking inwardly and talking to the board and being honest. We have tools on our webpage that'll help you do this. A blank Microsoft Word document, a template, a Google form you can even use to kind of to spell this out. Don't feel like you have to start this from scratch. So again, episode number 1 of 2025 talks through this, and these resources online will help. Another thing you can use to help this, another resource we have is a member survey. So if you get to a meeting of your board and you say, well, we don't know who's out there, we don't know what talents our members might have, a helpful beginning point might be sending out a survey, just asking members sort of what expertise or what backgrounds could they potentially bring, not just to the board, but maybe to committees to get things rolling. And of course, on our webpage, you'll also find a free template of an organizational member survey that you can adapt and use for your local situation. And I think, Dave, you had some experience working with that type of tool.
Yep, absolutely. So in my career, I use skills gap analysis to understand where on big projects that I was working on, where do we have gaps in knowledge and what do we need to do to fill those gaps? That holds true with our association also. And Eric made the point that you don't know what you don't know from a member perspective necessarily. And so one of the things that we wanted to do with this, with our gap analysis, was understand what our membership's talents were and where their passions were. So if we needed help with, I don't know, QuickBooks or something like that, we did this gap analysis, and we happen to use the gap analysis template that we put together. We tweaked it a little bit, but sent it out and asked our membership, hey, what is your background? Would you be willing to help with things in your background? So there's some very specific questions, and then there's some open text in there that they can fill in. But it really helped us distill where we might be able to request help from our membership, and also look for potentially new people to not only do committees, but be on the board of directors.
And I'm excited and happy to help you out if you have questions, if anyone has questions about this skills gap analysis. I'm happy to review yours if you develop one, or help guide you through it. So please reach out if you have questions. I like this type of thing a lot. Okay, so with that, thank you for joining us for this chat. This concludes our series of monthly chats for 2025. We hope this was helpful in you as you start to think about succession planning, or continue to think about succession planning and what you can do in the coming months to help your organization prepare for times of change. Potential topics for 2026 include how to start a water patrol, welcoming new residents to the lake, setting up a youth education program, partnering with land trusts, lakes with dams, and also hiring clean boats, clean waters inspectors. These are just potential topics. As always, please let us know if you have additional topics you would like us to discuss. And also, please let us know what you think about these chats by completing the feedback form linked on YouTube. And we appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone. And please reach out with any questions. Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.